I don't want to tell you a joke. I don't want to tell you anything at all, but you know the problem with me? I never could keep my big mouth shut.
AGS stands for Adventure Game Studio, which is Strangeland's game engine. This was incidentally the engine we previously used for Primordia, and Wadjet Eye Games has also predominantly used AGS for all their games. The big difference this time, however, is that we've expanded parts of AGS and fixed many of its issues throughout the production of Strangeland. Accessing backend factions through the plugin extension of the engine allowed us to run code functions that weren't accessible or were very slow. This has been a wonderful learning experience for me personally. The result stands tall and is not plagued by the selection of the engine in such an extent that people can't believe this was made in AGS.
There's a particular kind of allegorical story in which the protagonist's mental state, his character flaws, his hopes and aspirations, his sins, are manifested in a fantastical landscape through which that character travels, and over the course of his travels maybe comes to understand what's going on inside his mind or his soul. The first of these that I read as a child is Where the Wild Things Are. It's not as obviously an allegorical story as others, but it is. It's about a child's will to power and anger and frustration, sense of injustice about how he's been treated by his mother. And then over the years, I read other ones. And all of these works are an important inspiration for the structure and content of Strangeland. The Inferno begins with this memorable stanza, midway in the journey of our life. Ah, how hard it is to tell. And not just because.
Looks like they really want me to go in. It's an ad for Nepenthe. It reads, "Quaff, oh quaff, this fine Nepenthe. Win a bottle today at the shooting gallery." It says not all attractions are suitable to all ages. Visitors are encouraged to exercise judgment. Pretty vague as warnings go. Hello?
Leave me alone. I already told you a joke.
Wait!
Goodbye, my love.
She's gone.
Not gone, Querent. Merely dead. Again and again she comes to this well, to weep and leap at the sound of the shriek. Which of you will save the other?
It's a long way down, but I could give it a shot.
Listen. The thing you have to understand is, this is all your fault. You miss all the obvious signs. You let everything slip through your fingers, and you're no good at fixing things. That's why she's dead. That's why you're here, right? Anyway, I'll call again later, but if you need help, and you will need help, please hang up and press 0 to dial your operator.
Wait! He sounded just like me.
I knew you'd call. See, this isn't our first ride on the merry-go-round. And even though I can't hear you, I'll always know what you need. You need her. What's killing her? Can you stop it? Can you even face it?
For me, all storytelling is autobiographical. I don't really have the capacity to imagine characters that aren't, in a sense, just to some extent I can model. So, but I think some of us do. I think that's something that literature, but yeah.
Hello? Hello? I guess I need to put in a quarter.
The wind effect that is present mostly in Acts 1 and 2 is historically the most important visual effect because if I never implemented it, none of the other visual effects would be feasible. It was the first big test of the engine's extended capabilities with complex code functions, and I had to make sure that the answer I got from my experiments was the right one. Essentially, the wind effect is nothing more than a derivative version of a particle generator, with the addition of a circularly angled motion on the particles every fourth loop. In essence, it is nothing more than a 3-layer particle emitter. The 3 layers are background, small dust speckles, middle ground, dust speckles, and foreground, big dust speckles. But the wind gives this barren, strange feeling to the player, this unwelcoming, dusty carnival that he is now finding himself in.
4, 3, 1. It's been torn off after the first 3 digits. I already have her picture in my mind.
In the fall of 2016, my grandmother and my grandfather had been a NASA engineer, and when I was a little boy, he got us a computer. And over the years, he played a lot of the games that I made, the simple ones I made. And then as I got older, but he wanted to support me in that. And also, my grandmother had, honestly, genealogy is not, I think they got married because they wanted to just make it easier for us to introduce them to people at the wedding, that it would be easier to just, as dementia narrowed my grandmother's self-awareness, her awareness of others, my grandfather tried to engineer solutions. It's not a, it's just, and he kept trying to mitigate. I'm not sure the mitigating strategies worked, but he was a person who had a set of tools, engineering tools. I mean, and I was responsible for going through their apartment. And they had moved into smaller and smaller living spaces over the years. So they'd thrown away a lot of things. But even still, this was their most precious stuff. His old engineering manuals, a flag that had been in orbit around the Earth. And he had set aside some things that would be helpful for me in Fallen Gods, which is a Norse-inspired game, role-playing game I'm working on. Lewis chessmen replicas that they had gotten on one of their trips. And there were wood blanks. He was a wood carver. And a memory palace. It's a and it was this, and I, but
Yeah.
Welcome to the mysteries of the deep, home of the luminous stream maid, the vitriolic sea star, and the oleaginous bark swan.
What happened? I've got plenty.
Okay, so when I came into doing the graphics for Strangeland, I had DarkSeed and DarkSeed 2 very much in the forefront of my mind, like artistically, I guess. Don't think anyone would call those the most artistic games ever, except for the contributions of the seminal HR Giga, of course. And yeah, so basically my idea was for Strangeland was to give it a bit of a Giga vibe, or a Giga vibe, however you want to pronounce it. And honestly, kind of, I was trying to make a lot of the game look like the cover for DarkSeed 1, which turned out not to be the best idea when the scope of the game got kind of increased pretty massively from what we initially visualized. So I kind of had to expand my ideas for that a bit, which was fun though, because initially I started with basically a very blank canvas, monochrome brush strokes, like the underpainting for an oil painting where you blotch in. I pretty much stuck with that throughout. I wanted Strangeland to have a dreamlike quality, and while I've always wanted to make like a black and white game, that's just wasn't really ready to do that yet. So it's a game with two colors, if anything. I quite liked the idea early on of doing a psychological horror game that didn't actually depict any blood in it per se. I just kind of stumbled into that by accident, really. I mean, I hadn't drawn any blood in any of the scenes 3/4 through production, and yeah, I don't know what it is. I just thought it'd be interesting to have a horror game with no blood and see how fracking scary we could make a horror game without.
Not this again. Here's one for you. Man sitting in his doctor's office. Doc says, and now here's the good news. Man says, Doc, you didn't even tell me the bad news. Doc says, not this again.
A huge furnace with 83 painted on it.
That is my name, 83.
What are you?
I am the fire that burns the impure.
There was a golden-haired woman who threw herself down a well.
The bellows gasped on the day she was made.
But who was she?
A flawed thing that fire could not save.
Goodbye.
You have...
I need to put something on it for... just steam. Whoever built this place certainly doesn't trust me to find my own way.
Visions and macabre imagery is where I had the most fun on Strangeland, definitely. Doing things like, yeah, the vision sequences when the stranger will clutch his head in pain, and then you'll see some grotesqueries, usually of the crustacean variety. I had a ton of fun.
So I want to talk about machine men, about machines that are human-like, and I want to, and one day, in I think 7th grade, the King's Quest V had come out, and I'd been playing it over at a friend's house. And then at school, the friend whose house I'd been over was narrating a narration game with another kid in our class. And as I listened, I realized that he was just narrating King's Quest V. And even, when the other kid would come up with these fairly creative approaches to the puzzles in the game, they would just get shot down because my friend. And so the end result of it was that this computer game that had been designed in some sense to mimic an imagined adventure that you might tell with a friend was now becoming the shackles, the constraints that limited the imaginary adventure that these two friends were sharing. And this is not like a new problem. If you read Samuel Butler's novel Erewhon, but I think there is some real truth in that part of it. And this is so in his art here. One of the things that even if you make yourself into a machine, the chaos. So if Primordia is about robots who have human souls, Turing says.
What the? Ah! That's it! That shadow! That's what's making that sound. That's what's killing her. I have to destroy it.
As discussed in the annotations, a black dog is a traditional symbol of melancholy, despair, or depression. But like the symbols, and one there's a
Any closer and it'll attack. Talk about the dog that bit you.
Crow's flying along. Sees a crab eating some lady. Crow squawks. What are you doing? She's not even dead yet. Crab scuttles off. Next day, Crow's flying along, sees the crab's at it again. I thought I told you to scram, he says. Crab says, take another look. Crow looks at the lady and just says, carry on. Get it?
It's just... I wouldn't know where... What's that anvil for?
like the bear that licks its cub into shape. With a tongue of fire, I forge from ore upon the anvil whatever thing I wish.
Can you make something for me?
I can make any. Bring me a work order and lay your metal upon the anvil. You can bring me or
Goodbye.
you have...
Please don't! The hole's just big enough to reach through. Got it. Sure is heavier than it looked.
One of the first things that I coded was the implementation of the SDL audio engine, SDL mixer, with AGS. SDL is a cross-platform audio library that allows the playing of multiple sound effects, positional audio. Music tracks are streamed using the OGG Vorbis audio library, which enables Strangeland to crossfade between two tracks, something that was necessary and appropriate early on to our production. Sound effects, on the other hand, are loaded temporarily in memory when played and removed after a short period of time to make sure that one of the hardest things accomplished here, and one of the main reasons we switched from AGS default sound engine, was the need to apply a low pass filter audibly present when you open the inventory screen.
Adventure games are commonly described as being about locks and keys. The player comes across locks that can take any number of forms. In Primordia, our locks and keys, we sort of lampshaded that and made fun of it a bit. And so with Strangeland, although candidly...
Now, atmosphere-wise, I had a few things in the back of my mind, trying to set up the atmosphere for Strangeland, which, I mean, not only encompasses art, but also soundscape design, music. I guess you could... Strangely, my kind of biggest atmospheric influence, I think, on Strangeland was the game Kyrandia and Kyrandia 2: Hand of Fate. I guess they're just games I really loved, and I wanted the park of Strangeland to have that same kind of feeling, like you really were exploring an interesting, varied, wondrous kind of landscape, but obviously a lot darker than Kyrandia in a lot of spots. Yeah.
Who's there? Did you scare off those nice doves? Come closer. Let me hear you.
Sticks and stones will make me groan, but words will never move me.
Let me line this shot up.
My beak.
Beak?
My wing.
Huh? Wing?
My claws!
Did you say claws?
I don't need the target practice.
What would a blind old fool do?
It's an empty bird bath.
It had water once, but the deeper he drinks, the dimmer.
There's nothing on them. This could be useful.
Condolences. Cytotoxic. Wife.
Shortly after we finished Primordia, I set about trying to make this role-playing game, which I've now been working on for about a decade, called Fallen Gods. And to construct the setting for it, I wanted to read all of the Icelandic saga. But anyway, because it warning that just and I.
Kyrandia. Westwood. So yeah, Kyrandia just strangely a big I guess I don't know. I guess it's just the open world feel, and actually the old. I just want to give a few little nods to that game. Not that it had any massive, tangible influence. So yeah, I guess there's
A noose.
You were the one who tied it there. Tried hanging yourself. Did it make you any wiser?
I'm not sure. I don't remember.
That's why I write things down, you know, so as not to remember.
Don't you mean to forget?
Yes, I do mean to.
I can't.
Specialist. Childhood.
Step right up, step right up! Win yourself a bottle of the
There's no latch, and the edges are too tight for me to pull it off.
Your bad thoughts.
I imagine I need to use... It's locked.
10 hits gets you 1 hit, and 1 hit's all it takes to bring blessed sling. Oh, so close. Try
I guess I need to be... They need to be slow or something. I don't even know what it does. It's empty.
For all people think that LucasArts made better adventure games than Sierra, and there is something to that argument. Sierra games always had something that LucasArts games didn't, which is a variety of pathways through the game. Many of the puzzles were optional, and many of the puzzles had multiple solutions. And those multiple paths and multiple solutions, the reason why is that they permit the designer to have different kinds of puzzles. So for example, here we have an action puzzle, the shooting gallery puzzle, where a player with good twitch reflexes can actually just win based on twitch skills alone. But alternatively, a player who wants to take a more cerebral approach can combine a series of item puzzles and logic puzzles to slow down the skulls in the shooting gallery and make it easier to win that way. And so there are these two different approaches, and those approaches help define the way the player relates to the game, and that.
Do that again. Testing 1 2 1 2 check, mic check 1 2. I guess my first attempt at making a point-and-click adventure started with the horror genre, a little game that never got finished. Got a few of those in the background, called Homunculi. I guess I was inspired by just like, but yeah, this was going to be a little. I guess I'll have quite a lot. I mean, of course, I can't take.
My mind? No, you're finding it. You've hidden a hard grain of truth beneath smooth layers of lies. A masquerade of metaphors. Here's a metaphor for you. Your mind is a matryoshka. It's just you, and you, and you, and you, and you. And we're here to open you up.
I need to deposit a coin first.
A 25-cent deposit is required to make this call. Please hang up.
You should talk to that old man. He may be an idiot, but he's a useful idiot. And he has things you'll need.
That's not go. It's not a cream. I don't want to.
To make fitting claws will take more than that mere pin.
Not much you can make out of a rat. I don't want to. Stop!
The electric gate is an effect generated when the game starts. It's a shader that was translated into a software renderer, which then gets exported into a 22-frame animation. It is pre-rendered because it can be executed without any slowdowns during runtime. It's one of the visual effects that I'm really happy about, because initially there was no electricity on that gate, and it made no sense why our protagonist wouldn't just climb over it. And being able to
Didn't work. Didn't work. That's... His eyes, they're gone.
But my ears are just fine, stranger.
There was a golden-haired woman who threw herself down a well.
No sickness is worse to one who is wise than to lack the...
But who was she?
Who are we to rob each other of our forgetfulness? After all, It's written somewhere that the learned man whose lore is deep.
Did you mention doves?
Yes, I feed them as they flutter by. I find it soothes my mind. Are they here?
Do you mean that crow?
Raven.
No, I mean, it was the raven who told me of them. Are they here?
I think the raven lied.
Well, what difference does it make to a blind man?
About the...
Are they here?
No.
Ah.
Why's that bird bath empty?
Once it was filled with fresh, well-watered, but doves and ravens would much rather bathe in dust. Maybe they can't abide their reflections either.
I keep hearing... What is it?
The dark thing.
What is the dark thing?
A shadow locked away up there. Some boils are better.
How can I reach the dark thing?
A word leads to a word. For silver he speaks. His wit. I read that once. I suppose it doesn't much.
What happened to your eye?
I fed them to a raven. He said it would bring me wisdom.
Did it work? Are you wiser?
Oh, yes, indeed. I learned that to be blind is better than to burn on a pyre, and that it is easier to be rid of your eyes than the vision that offended you.
Where are we?
I wish I could tell you. The man who stands at a strange threshold should be cautious. I read that.
About the...
Are they?
Sure they're here.
Ah, then let me find a crust of bread.
A scrap of meat.
I'd rather think of it as bread for the doves.
What are you writing?
The same things I've written after all. And
Who are you?
I'm afraid I'm just an old fool. I do that much.
Can't you just tell me?
Seldom do the... So I think...
Can you at least...
Well, I remember the name Fimble Famby. But whether it's mine or yours or both...
Goodbye.
Joy...
Peonies. My beak.
Beak?
It's not much of a tree for climbing.
Hospital.
Now, step away. Behold the beak, fit for one who would carve and cut.
It's not a throwing knife. It's not... I'm not going to... Tempting.
Kisses.
It seems to... No need to... I can still feel its teeth.
Kid's staring at heaven when suddenly there's this stabbing pain in his eye. Can't stop himself from crying. And everywhere he looks, everything's ugly, dirty, and dark. Kid runs to the doctor, and the doc checks him out. Doc says, "Well, Kai, problem is you've got a little shard in there." Kai looks at him and says, "But Doc, you've got a whole mirror in yours."
Four? Wait! The knife's not sharp enough to cut through the canvas. It's a good 30 feet out of reach. I'll need to get into the tent first. So, could I have some more, for the doves? I should pick it up.
Anniversary.
I just picked it. That's... No need to...
Easter.
No need to... It's not... I don't... Do you want this, Nepenthe? It's supposed to ease troubled thoughts.
No. I will seek forgetfulness my own way, word by word. What would a blind...
Constellation. Thanks.
Bread? The game seems to have turned on.
Why don't you actually look at the things you're taking, like that rat?
The stitches are too strong for me to do anything with my... Maybe... Well, it was worth a try. The stitches are too... That's...
Stop me if you've heard this one. Man drags himself into his shrink's office. Says, "Doc, I got this bad feeling. My wife thinks all I do is dwell on the bad stuff and complain." Shrink says to herself, "Why'd I ever go and marry my patient?" Does this look like the kind of mouth you eat with?
Sticks and stones will make me groan.
Yeah, I've heard it before.
All right, I'll talk.
What can you tell me about the dark thing?
I'm a raven, not a rat. Go ask somebody else.
So, who or what are you?
I just am. Because I think.
Really? What are you?
A raven, lunatic.
Where are we?
Baked in a pie, I guess.
Do you just sit there, watching every time that woman kills herself?
Aw, don't get so bent out of shape. That little slip and fall didn't do her any harm.
But she killed herself!
Don't take it so literally, boss. Believe me, if she were dead, I'd be eating her eyes. As you might have noticed, death is different here. Puts a poor raven out of work, I'll tell you that.
Are you sure you're not a crow?
Look, I may be unkind, but I'm not murderous, and I croak rather than caw. Plus, I fly in a pair, not in a flock. Raven. Definitely raven.
What did you mean? Death is different here.
It means I'll not carry in comfort down there, feast on thee.
Goodbye. The stitches are too strong for me to do anything with my hand. Not much you can make. It's not a... It was stuffed with quarters?
Please help!
Ugh. It's a rat skin. A good the word a hunk, nepenthe, a drug to quiet. It smells like poppy. It's empty. An ugly steel dagger. More quarters than I know what to...
I am Merlin the Magnificent, great giver of counsel. What was, what is, and what will be are all mine to draw from the deck of your life. For what you've paid, we may speak of cards, and hear what suits the fates. What would you know?
My present.
I will tell you the figures. You will tell me the cards, and they will show us their truth. Let us begin. I see you, Quarren. What card shall stand for the man before me?
The Hanged Man.
Ever wanting wisdom, never knowing where to find it, stuck in time as a sacrifice to the card suits you. But which best befits this place?
The tower.
A ruin rent by lightning, the rumble of wrecking change, which may yet hold the flash of insight. It will do for this strange land. Now, what will you pick for the old scribe you so lately stood beside?
The magician.
The one that follows the fool. shadowed by the infinite. His hidden bidding is to wield your own wisdom. You would do well to heed the lesson. The Hanging Man, the Tower, the Magician. What do these cards show? A man who outwits himself, lost in liminal space, that infinitesimal between whence and whither. His well of wisdom is run dry. A worm gnaws at the roots of his confidence, and thought and memory blind his mind's eye. That quirk is what is.
Wince and wither.
Like a lot of nerds, when I was a kid, I became interested in tarot. Not because I believed in it as a divination tool or as some... it's different from a Ouija board, which, whatever powers spiritualists ascribe to it, is just fundamentally kind of lame. But tarot cards, if you look at like the Rider-Waite deck, have this. So if you're a fantasy novel reader, it's kind of funny because actually the tarot deck existed as just a playing card game for hundreds of years before anyone started using it for divination. But, for whatever reason, I just thought tarot was really cool. I remember trying to integrate it into some games that I was making in high school. And this particular sequence, we just kept making it better. The design aspect of that is almost trivial, but I think there is something to that is, it's one of the places in the game, and I've always thought that in that sense, video games are kind of like
I am not... What would you... We will now speak once more. What card will serve for the you who is...
The Fool.
Ah, the excuse. An empty-headed vagabond wandering among wonder. The card suits you. Which one suits that ride? That Valkyrie, which promises to bear you up to where the great battle...
Chariot.
An obvious pick, perhaps, and yet fitting, for it marks an act of decision by the one stuck between the riddles of the dark sphinx and the light. It will do. There is but one more now. The dark thing that lurks above. What is its cause?
It's death.
Yes, but not the death you seek. The death of will, the death of movement, and yet, perhaps, a new beginning. So then, what have we? The Fool, the Chariot, death. You will call for 3-1-10-1, and from among the dead, you will be taken, to be born and reborn, to rise, to fall, and rise again, until you find your way. That quirk is...
Call! Call!
What? We have read the future in the cards before, and you know what we saw. You will call for 3, and that... What? For what?
The Hermit.
Holding a lamp to see, but looking only inward, seeking only himself. A fitting choice. And what is the card?
The Star.
where the world meets the water and the maiden spill, or a sound selection. And tell me, what card will we lay for her?
The priestess.
She stands for a mystery, then. A life becalm, and the need to look within. And so we have your cards. The Hermit, the Star, the Priestess. What shall we make of them? A man who stands blithe and blind upon the very cusp of change, failing to heed a woman's flesh and blood. That correct?
Idle offer.
I really like the Call for 3 puzzle. It's probably my favorite puzzle in the game, but it is the kind of puzzle that's a little bit worrisome because players really only can get it in an epiphany. There isn't any way to work through it and slowly come to realize it. We have clues, we have nudges around the park, and obviously there's the hint line. But some percentage of players, just maybe because English is a second language, or maybe because in their heads they pronounce wanton a certain way that makes the 110 aspect of the puzzle opaque, will just never get it, and then it'll feel arbitrary. But even though it's, in that sense, a high risk or divisive, but I like it because it's so different from a sort of traditional point and click puzzle so I hope you liked.
His eyes looked happy. Beware of dog. Thanks, guys. Some carny left himself a to-do list taped to the wall in here. Too many winners. Turn up the skull speed. Shut down MOTD. Starfish keeps spitting acid on guests. Find something for Ozzy to chew on.
As I first started using the extended ability to run code in a much faster fashion through the plugin, the first effect that was coded almost entirely by accident, as I thought it was something I did wrong instead of the intended effect, is the Screech Effect. The Screech Effect basically grabs a still frame on the screen and creates a repeating animation of 46 frames within a single loop of the engine, 1/4. The animation gives an out-of-this-world feeling that this realm that the player finds himself in, this weird carnival, is not very stable, and whilst our character's mind is hurting or being affected by the dark thing, so is the world that surrounds him. The blur effect, on the other hand, is something I believe will be familiar to anyone who has ever played a game in their lifetime. It's just a simple box blur effect that gets applied to a still image that is taken whenever you open a UI.
Hey, stranger!
Shh, we're supposed to be men.
What's with the mask?
Everyone wears them.
You going too?
What?
We all have a role to play.
And in this story, there's only room for one woman.
That's why we've gotta be guys.
What's under the mask?
Nothing. Legends say it's death to gaze upon a masker.
But I bet you don't pay attention to foolish gossip like that.
Yeah, there's nothing to fear under here. Get it? Ugh.
What do you mean I'm wearing a mask?
Oh, come on, stranger. You don't really think you escaped from some sanitarium sporting a retro straitjacket and movie star stubble?
We all dress our best to fit what we think the world wants.
And in a strange land, it suits a man to be estranged.
Who are you?
Well, we're sure not Valkyries. Don't let that sign confuse you.
And we're not fates, neither, just because there's 3 of us.
That's more Murmur's thing.
We're not weird sisters, even if we are strange. After all, you're strangers still.
What can you tell me about Murmur?
He's got a head for prophecies.
There was a golden-haired woman who...
The woman.
There's only one of them in your story.
We won't judge.
Can you tell me anything about her?
She's trying to save you.
You need to find her.
You're kind of a Hansel in distress.
Okay, you've said who you're not, but who are you?
Just think of us as fragments.
Figments.
Pigments.
Ugh.
What? We're here to add color, aren't we?
Where can I find her?
Up.
Up.
And away.
What's the deal with that Valkyrie ride?
The ride of the Valkyrie. Technically.
A one-way ticket up.
But where's the coaster car?
Haven't you ever heard of calling a ride?
Do you have names?
The Three Musketeers.
Ugh.
Look, I'm sure you mean well, but everybody knows not to give their name to a stranger.
I met an old scribe under a tree.
Ugh. He's the worst. His handwriting's terrible. I wanted A3 to make me a gaggle of bagels. And you don't even want to guess what I wound up with when I showed...
Where am I?
Well, stranger, I have a feeling you're not in Kansas anymore.
Ugh, come on. Enough with the one-liners.
Fine. You're at wit's end.
Just cut the poor guy a break.
All right, we'll call it the breaking point.
Don't let that old crab get you down. Remember what they say. Home is where the heart is.
Do you know anything about the dark thing?
I'm scared of the dark.
While I wait for the dusk.
You'll find out soon enough.
Can I look under your mask?
Can't say we didn't warn him.
Nothing. Absolute nothing.
So, some lady goes to see the doctor. Says, Doc, I feel like there's a monster that's eating me alive. Doc says, come on, lady, it's all in your head.
Call! Call!
When Murmur told your future, the words he used were numbers. A phone number. Remember how the masqueraders told you to call for a ride? Well, now you've got the number.
I am what would... We have read the future, and you know what... You will call for 3-1-10-1-3. And from among the dead, that correct?
We're sorry. We are unable to complete your call as dialed. Please check the number and...
The ride of the Valkyrie is currently closed for want of worthy riders. In the future, the ride will return, should circumstances call for it.
I can really just call the Valkyrie?
Why, so can I, or so can any man. But will it come when you do call?
You know you can't call her unless you have her number.
And we can't help you.
What did I see under there?
You saw the reason why everyone wears masks. I promise we won't ask to look under yours.
Goodbye.
Yep.
Masks are a central theme of Strangeland. Maybe not to the extent that masks are a theme of, say, Mask of the Betrayer, one of my favorite. There aren't different and
It It looks like, but there's no train here. What can you tell?
It should have been burnt away, but the fire did no more than shrink it for a time.
I need you to make this dagger sharper.
Fool! You begged for beak, and that is what I gave you. A blade whose bite is fit for what you asked. Now you want more? What you crave is a softer world, or a crueler edge. For that, you must find other tools and other folk. You will get no better from 8-3.
Can you
give me...
Goodbye.
You...
I've already picked.
We're sorry. We are please check the... We're sorry. We are unable to complete your call as dialed. Please check...
What would... We have read the path. A man who stands blithe, failing to heed of that quest. What? We have read the future, and you will call for 3 110 1 3. From among the dead. That query.